What's shaking, cats and kittens? Rob Lee here for this month's presenting sponsor, Night Owl Gallery. Night Owl Gallery is an intimate, artist-run exhibition space showcasing the original paintings and fine art prints of Beth Ann Wilson. Also, it features curated goods from local artists and craftsmen. You'll be sure to find one-of-a-kind gifts, handcrafted jewelry, home decor items, along with a few vintage treasures. Located in the rear of 248 South Conklin Street in Highlandtown, across from Sally O's, Night Owl Gallery is a unique space that brings together Wilson's love of the arts, community, and culture. Additionally, Night Owl Gallery hosts an array of arts and crafts workshops throughout the year and participates in community events, many of which are free and open to the public. So in this ever-changing world, safety is their priority. So feel free to join them and hit them up online at www.nightowl.gallery. Tell them Rob Lee sent you. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is owner, entrepreneur, architect. You got everything. We have Kalilah Wright from Mess in a Bottle. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So I want to get right into it. I've seen you in different videos for different things within the business and entrepreneurship community here. So this is totally a pleasure. So for those who are uninitiated, give that quick spiel on what your background is and what your work is about.
So Mess in a Bottle, we're a t-shirt company, and we put messages on t-shirts and they come packaged in a reusable bottle. I started the company in 2016, shortly after the Freddie Gray uprising here in Baltimore, Maryland. So Freddie Gray, an African-American male, he died while in police custody. And, it happened in my Baltimore City community. And it really kind of forced me to want to, foster the conversation and to give a voice to the voiceless. So that's kind of how Mess in a Bottle was birthed. And it stems from the 310 BC concept of receiving a message in the ocean. So, this was my way of sort of being able to start important conversations with the message.
And I dig the messages that are in there. I was like, this is super Black. This is definitely hitting on those notes. And I was just like, that's the thing that always has to be like just in the conversation. I was like, there's a lot of things that are out there that we can purchase and we put on our bodies, but they're not really saying anything. And I think with the product that you're putting out there, you're definitely saying things. You're saying things that feel authentic for people that look like you and I. So I applaud you on that.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
So I read that you're a trained architect. What skills in architecture have you relied on in transitioning into fashion and entrepreneurship?
Definitely like a project management skills and just designer skills, as well as, just really navigating and being able to, lead a team as well. So those are all things that I learned, through my career as an architect, problem solving. Those were all things that, initially I didn't know, but going through school and going through my architecture career, it really has allowed me to get comfortable with, just also being a Black woman in a room, architecture, you don't see that very often. So those are all things that architecture really introduced me to. So now as a designer, I was able to be able to stand in spaces and not feel uncomfortable or go through adversity and problem solve and figure things out, hiring a team, so there's just numerous things that I think that architecture really prepared me for within my current profession.
It's great to see that transition from, I think, one type of professional or career trajectory that seems to be different ultimately where you place out at, and then hearing how people connect those things. Like my ears perk up, although I'm wearing headphones, my ears perk up when you say problem solving, because I came out of the illustrious Morgan State University, as I raise an eyebrow, with a background in marketing and business. And I did that for the first 5 years of my career. And then it was just not long-term, not sustainable. And I always wanted to do something that was more creative. So in the last 8 years, I've been working in higher ed and doing this podcast endeavor, and the podcast endeavor for longer than that, 12 years, but in the last 8 years working in higher ed, and being able to combine those things and taking from the problem solving, taking from like how things should look and how things should be rolled out and the project management piece. But it's always interesting to see what someone's creative philosophy is and how they go about transitioning from one career that may seem different to another career. So that's great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I really feel like architecture to me really aligned with, I'm a designer, and that's what, I just went from designing buildings to now designing clothes to now running a company, so to me, my design background really just aids me in all these different, if I wanted to become, I don't know what next, but, I'm sure I could still allow my design background to really lend to whatever profession I would go into.
Yeah, I think in part is how one views it. Like, I go into any job because I haven't made the complete entrepreneurial jump yet. But when I go into a job, I don't try to hit them or go into any interaction. I don't try to hit them with what I think they want. I try to sell myself as is out of the box. I'm a problem solver. If that's what you want, let's go with it. Mm-hmm. And it just resonates. Yeah. It's transferable. So in getting into the space and of what your business is, how were you able to distinguish yourself from competitors?
To distinguish myself from competitors, I think that I did this really interesting thing by putting the messages like sort of in a bottle. I think that, maybe I pulled from the marketing component of learning a couple things in architecture, but the marketing component of having a story, being able to story tell and, connecting people with the message and allowing them to really resonate with the product that I was designing. And so I think that, I really stood out because I was able to, as I said before, give a voice to the voiceless. I said things in a very kind of different way that people might have been thinking, but not as free to say. Mm-hmm. And so I think that really allowed me to, stand out pretty well in the marketplace.
Well, you touched on something, so I'm going to skip one of my questions. I'll come back to it later, but you touched on it, and I don't want to bury the lead. So authenticity, right? Authenticity is important to your brand and what you're putting out there from the whole gamut. Like I did some sneaky internet work. It's also appears to be at a premium these days, that authenticity idea. People want to present themselves as being real. And we all know it's kind of weird to try to do that via social media because a lot of things on there are fake. How do you maintain, whether it be in your personal brand, professional brand, however you want to frame this, how do you maintain the idea of authenticity? So,
it's really interesting that you asked this question. And I think that, so I've spent most of my life being very open, very free, being very vocal and saying, sort of how I feel. And, I sort of, it's an interesting question because this morning a Facebook memory popped up, and this memory was pretty much I used to give all of me maybe 5-10 years ago, where I would tell you down to the underwear I had on, I feel like. So I would bring people all the way in my house. And now, 10 years later, with growth, with evolution, with age, I've become a little bit closed in where I don't want to share, and I think that I now use my apparel to sort of speak for me. I'm allowing kind of my voice to be heard, but just with my clothing brand, and not so much as telling people, who, people have learned who I am. And so, and I think that it's an interesting question because I was looking through these memories and I was like, I can't believe I was sharing this much of me. And I think that I've now learned, it's so funny because I think a lot of people go from being a introvert to wanting to be an extrovert. Right. And I feel like doing the reverse, where I was an extrovert and I'm slowly crawling into this shell. And, it's been a bit of a time examining, is this good? Is this bad? Is this who I want to be? But I definitely think that with age, you start to kind of question how much of like kind of visibility. And I guess maybe also now I've been placed, sort of in this thing in which people now view me and see me. So I think that it's also forced me to become more protective of myself.
That's legit. As a person that overshares and been doing a podcast through different decades of my life, and just like, oh, here's my authenticity. I'm going to be as genuine as possible. And then people coming back, whether it be in people close to me or whether it be people who want to get to know me. And it's like, yeah, so listen to episode 200. And when you said this, I was like, I don't remember saying that. But
right. Oh, so you feel my pain here.
I do.
Because now I'm like, oh, no, you shouldn't have said, oh, no. Like, I don't even think that we realize probably how far. But again, in regards to your question, though, I think what that is, so many people, we've been conditioned in the last like 10 years to sort of, we've gotten used to filters. Mm-hmm. We've gotten used to seeing what it looks like with a Photoshopped picture. We've gotten used to so many things that are just like not true. Yeah. That is just the smoke and mirrors. And so I think that the minute that someone is like truly authentic, crying, showing raw emotions and not looking up at the camera to see if anybody's looking, people are like, is this real? Mm-hmm. Like, there's real emotions? And they get really attracted and fixated on that as well, where, for them also, it feels like, wow, you're actually showing us something we're not seeing in the world. So I think that also becomes like this thing where the authenticity is just because it's rare. Mm-hmm. It's not, it's not presented that much anymore for us to see.
It's like the same thing with that quote when people say, because kindness is so rare, people usually confuse it with flirting or something along those lines. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I like that. I think that men, I got to look up that message because I feel like men have such a hard time with that because, I joke about that with my friends, with my girlfriends, like someone holds the door for you. And like, single women are like, oh my God, he wants to marry me. And I'm like, no, it's just the door. That's what his mama told him to do. Right. That's it. Like, don't get it confused.
Just gluing his phone number on it. Like, yeah, just in case you want to know.
Right. Yeah.
So speak on that, some of those early stages. So how was it like in getting funding, or what creative strategies did you use to kind of work with what I assume was a more minimal cash flow than where you're at now? How was that? Speak on that a bit.
In the beginning, I did a lot of like bootstrap, like, pitch competitions and really just trying to get my name out there. So anywhere and everywhere that I could be, I would be. Mm-hmm. I would go ahead and, go to any conferences and just make sure you could see my products. I would sneak into places that I couldn't afford to be in, rooms that I couldn't afford to be in, and just, be a fly on the wall. And so for me, it was just really, I felt like having my name in those spaces, meant more than just like the financial. I knew that other stuff would come later on. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I like focused on. And, and financially, it definitely was difficult, but I did a lot of pitch competitions and, and some type of, crowdfunding just to raise money to really get me here.
That's great. That's great to hear. Cause I think a lot of times people see a dollar amount, they see an approach, and it's just, if it's not this bred or it's not that, then I'm not going to do it. And, some of the people that I've talked with and during this podcast, or people I've just kind of just talked to in the whole podcasting scene, they just throw their ideas that it's like, this is not long-term sustainable. Like, are you getting yourself out there? What does your profile look like? Do people know who you are? And It's kind of putting the cart before the horse of, I just need to make this money and then I'll grow. It's like, that's not how it works, like in a long-term sustainable sort of way. And again, going back to that notion I was kicking around of like being able to take from one area of what you're doing, like taking the problem solving that you obtained, being an architect and the design background, and using that in what you're doing now. I think the same thing applies in that area of like, how are you getting yourself out there? Ultimately is what it is. Right. And people miss it. People miss it. And it's like, you know, you can be in the room, but people need to know who you are to get you in that room sometimes. Your presence has to be felt. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and sometimes it's like you have to ensure that you're speaking up for you and really making sure you're getting noticed. And I don't think that a lot of people, you know, people want to be in the room, but they don't even know what to do when they get in there. Yeah. So that's also a thing. Yeah, I had to try to make a more conscious effort in working with really like talented women over the last year or so. It's like, you need to do this, because I was like, what's not working in terms of building out that profile? And it's like, people don't know who you are. It's like, I was like, well, I'm 6'4", I'm 300 pounds. People can't see me. And it's like, no, they don't see you because they don't really know who you are. And it's just following some of the tactics that they put in place, building out a plan for me. And it's like, you need to get here, you need to get there. And I'm like, I'm a very coachable talent in that way. And, you know, people are hitting me up. People are recognizing me in the streets randomly. And I'm like, we're wearing masks right now. How do you know who I am? It's like, yo, is that Rob? I was like, hey, man, how's it going? Mm-hmm. So I have a few more questions, and this is where it gets into the odder questions, because I always like to have odd questions in here. So obviously you're multi-talented. You do a lot of stuff. Like I said, I checked into the profile a little bit. So what would be a hidden talent that not many people know that you have? And what is a talent you wish you'd had? A hidden talent that I have is I could jump double dutch, because I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and Brooklyn girls know how to jump rope. And a talent I wish I had, I wish I could sing, but I still try, but I can't. So yeah, those are my two things. I'm going to run that by my partner. She's from Brooklyn. I'm like, look, so I know you got the knee issue, but let's see this double dutch game. Let's see this jump rope game. She better get with it. She better be on it. So if you had the opportunity to collaborate, work with someone creative in that creative kind of space, living or no longer living or what have you, who would you want to work with and why? Let's see. Who would I want to work with? I would love to work with Dapper Don. I just think he's an icon in the industry. And it would be just amazing, you know, just to see what he's done in the last, you know, many years with, you know, his brand and other brands and how he's been so influential. So I would want to work with Dapper Don. That's great. That's top tier. Last question. And I always like to do the shameless plugs at the very end, like give everyone an opportunity just to make an ass out of themselves. Shameless, plug it up. Describe the experience you've had as an entrepreneur operating in Baltimore. Like, how's it been being in the scene here within the community here? Speak on that a bit. I mean, it's been cool. I don't know, like my fan base is still, I think, very New York. But I think Baltimore embraces me, the ones who know I'm here. And I mean, you know, it's a city that I'm really still enjoying to like sort of get to know. I've been in Baltimore since graduating grad school for at least 12 or 13 years now. And I still feel like there's just so much to still learn about the city. And so I think that's been quite interesting, where I'm still getting to know the city and the city's still getting to know me. Yeah. It's one of those things. I've been here my entire life, and I've learned more about the city during the pandemic, where we're not able to go outside, right. through interacting with people. And I think you always hear about community. You always hear about that kind of inviting thing. And that once you're in, you got to pass that test or what have you. Once you're in, you're in. And I think that's how it goes. And I think we're, you know, we want to have community here, and we want to be able to build it up. And some people look at it as like a stop as part of their journey, as opposed to this could potentially be where I land for that journey. Right. But it's always good to talk to people who are doing business here. And choosing to do business here. You definitely got the New York thing going on, but I look at you as a Baltimore brand. I look at you as a Baltimore brand.
Yeah, I am. No, this is where I built my business. I totally agree.
Lastly, shameless plug time. So for those who are uninitiated, who are not following, who are not like just completely dipped with all of the social media and all of that stuff, website, all of that stuff, where can he find you? Where can he find your business?
You can find me at messinabottle.com to shop my t-shirts. You can find me at ownerofmess.com. And lastly, you can find my tea classes at thetclass.com.
See, right there, just simple. You've done this before, obviously. Some people stumble all over themselves like, what's my social media again? I was like, I don't know. I'm asking you.
Right.
So thank you so much. This has been great. I've learned a lot. Glad to get those added details of the story, because I've listened to you and I've been on different chats with you in the past, and it's good to get just more of what your story is. So thank you again.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Totally. So for Kalilah Wright, of the owner of Mess in the Bottle, I'm Rob Lees, and there's business, art, all of these cool things in and around Baltimore. Just got to look for it.